Audio Note is part of a fun podcast-style series created by the Rubicon Bridge team for IGCSE learners. Keep listening and keep learning.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're plunging into, well, a really fascinating topic today. Pulling together insights from quite a stack of sources. We're tackling a real biological head-scratcher, something that genuinely baffled scientists for ages. The platypus.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when that first specimen, the first platypus, arrived in England, this was way back in 1799.
Right.
The scientific world was just completely stumped. I mean, try to picture it. It's got this bill like a duck, feet like an otter, webbed feet, a tail like a beaver, and then fur like a mole.
It sounds impossible, like a joke.
Exactly. Dr. George Shaw, who first described it, you actually thought it was a fake.
Yeah.
You know, that someone had literally sewn bits of different animals together.
Honestly, you can't blame him. I mean, a duck-billed mammal? It sounds made up.
It really did. It was a proper biological puzzle. How do you classify something like that? It lays eggs, okay, like a reptile or bird.
But then it feeds its young milk from mammary glands.
Precisely. Like a mammal. It just didn't fit neatly into any box they had back then. It sort of broke all the rules.
And that's what's so interesting, isn't it? It's not just the platypus itself, as weird and wonderful as it is.
Oh, it's more fundamental.
Yeah, it's how this one creature forced scientists to step back and ask, what actually is life? And how can we possibly organize all this, incredible variety?
And that is exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to unpack the core characteristics that actually define something as being alive.
Okay.
And then look at the systems, the methods scientists use to classify everything. It's about how we make sense of it all, how we untangle these biological mysteries.
Because knowing this stuff, these basic rules, it's not just for scientists, right? It gives you, the listener, a really powerful way to understand the living world around you. Sort of a shortcut to being genuinely informed about biology.
Definitely.
So we're starting with the absolute basics, defining life itself. What's the essential checklist? Where do we begin?
Well, okay, biology is the study of organisms, right? Living things. And to be called an organism, scientifically speaking, something has to show 7 specific characteristics.
7 characteristics, like life's universal job description.
That's a great way to put it. Yes, exactly. It's the essential criteria.
Okay, so what are these 7 things? Let's break them down.
Right. First up is movement. Now, this isn't just about, walking or running.
Like a kangaroo jumping. That's pretty obvious movement.
That's the obvious kind, yes. But think smaller, subtler. A Venus flytrap snapping shut. It's slow, but it's movement.
Ah, right. Or even plants turning to the sun.
Exactly. Or roots growing down. Even things happening inside a cell, like cytoplasm flowing. It's all about changing position or place, internally or externally. It's about being dynamic.
Okay, that makes sense. It's broader than just locomotion. So movement needs energy, right? Where does that come from?
That brings us neatly to number 2, respiration. And again, this isn't just about breathing in and out.
Not like us breathing air.
Well, that's part of it for many animals. But biologically, respiration refers to the chemical reactions happening inside every single living cell.
Okay.
These reactions break down nutrients, food molecules to release energy. It's the fundamental process that powers everything else. It's like the engine running constantly inside.
The cellular power plant running 24/7. Got it. So we've got movement powered by respiration. How do living things react to their environment?
That's sensitivity. It's the ability to detect changes, stimuli in the internal or external environment and then respond to them.
Like, the pufferfish. That's a dramatic one.
Perfect example. It senses danger and boom, it inflates itself with those spines sticking out. That's a response to an external stimulus.
Very effective response, too, I imagine.
Definitely. But it can be subtle, too, like the Venus flytrap responding to touch or even just your pupils getting smaller in bright light. It's about awareness and reaction.
Okay. Awareness and reaction makes sense. And while for life to continue, things need to get bigger, develop.
Exactly. That's growth. And biologically, growth is defined as a permanent increase in size and dry mass.
Permanent increase. Okay. How does that happen?
It happens because the organism either makes more cells, or the cells it has get bigger, or usually it's a bit of both. It's a process of developing and maturing.
Right. And for the species itself to survive, not just the individual.
That leads us to reproduction. This covers all the processes organisms use to make more of their own kind. It's absolutely essential for the species to continue over time.
Whether it's bacteria splitting in two or elephants having calves.
Precisely. It ensures life carries on from one generation to the next.
Okay, so we're moving, respiring, sensing, growing, reproducing. That's a lot of biological activity. What about the waste products?
Good question. That's where excretion comes in. All those metabolic processes, the chemical reactions in respiration, for example, they produce waste products. Some are toxic.
So you've got to get rid of them.
You absolutely do. Excretion is the removal of these unwanted metabolic wastes. If they built up, they'd poison the organism. Think of it as the body's waste disposal system.
Okay, the cleanup crew. And finally, the fuel for all this. The movement, growth, everything.
The last of the 7 is nutrition. This is simply the taking in of materials food needed for energy, growth, and development.
And that looks different for plants and animals, right?
Very different. Animals typically get nutrition by eating other organisms. Plants, amazingly, make their own food using photosynthesis, capturing energy directly from sunlight. They're the producers.
Photosynthesis. Incredible. So, movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. Those are the 7 pillars of life, basically.
The foundation, yes.
But as we saw with the platypus, just knowing something's alive doesn't automatically tell you where it fits, does it? It still caused chaos.
It did. And that's exactly why classification is so critical. The platypus really highlighted the need for a structured system.
So why classify? What's the big benefit?
Well, it does several crucial things. It helps us reliably identify organisms. It helps us understand how different life forms are related to each other, evolutionarily speaking.
Like building a giant family tree.
Exactly like that. Tracing lineages back to common ancestors. It brings order to the sheer diversity. Without it, biology would just be this overwhelming jumble of millions of different things. It lets us map the territory of life.
Mapping the territory. I like that. And on that map, the smallest, most specific locations are the species, right? What makes something a distinct species, especially when things seem to blur, like with the platypus?
The absolute key criterion is reproduction. Specifically, members of the same species can interbreed to produce fertile offspring that can then go on to reproduce themselves.
Ah, the fertile part is crucial.
It's everything. Think about horses and donkeys. They can breed, right?
Yeah, they produce a mule.
Exactly. But the mule is sterile. It can't reproduce. That infertility is the proof that horses and donkeys, despite being similar and able to mate, are fundamentally distinct species.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. That distinction helps draw the line. So how do scientists actually name all these millions of species in a consistent way globally?
That's the beauty of the binomial system. Binomial just means 2 names. It's a standardized system using Latin.
Like Homo sapiens for us?
Precisely. Homo is the genus, the broader group, always capitalized.
Yeah.
Sapiens is the species, the specific name, always lowercase.
And always in italics.
Always in italics, yes. It's like a universal scientific code. A scientist anywhere in the world knows exactly what Homo sapiens refers to. No confusion with common names that vary by language or region.
A universal language for biology. That's smart. Okay, but say you find something in your garden or under a microscope. You don't know what it is. How do you figure it out? You can't possibly know all the names.
No, you definitely can't. That's where you use a dichotomous key.
Dichotomous, meaning it splits in 2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a practical tool, like a flowchart for identification. It gives you a series of paired statements or questions about the organism's features.
Like a choose-your-own-adventure.
Sort of, yeah. Each choice leads you down a different path. For example, the first question might be, does it have jointed legs? Yes or no?
Okay.
If you say yes, it directs you to the next pair of questions, maybe about the number of legs or antenna. If you say no, it sends you to a different set of questions entirely. You follow the path based on the organism's features, eliminating possibilities until you land on its identity.
So, step-by-step deduction.
Precisely. You can use keys like this to identify anything, insects, spiders, plants based on their flowers or leaves, even bacteria based on lab tests. It's a very logical process.
Okay, so we have the definition of life, the way we name species, and the tools to identify them. What about the really big picture? How do biologists group everything into major categories?
Right. We zoom out to the 5 kingdoms. This is the broadest level of classification, grouping organisms based on fundamental similarities in their cell structure and how they get nutrition.
The 5 kingdoms, what are they?
They are the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the fungus kingdom, the protist kingdom, and the prokaryote kingdom.
Okay, let's start with the one we're most familiar with, animals.
Right, the animal kingdom. Key features. They can generally move around actively, and they have to find and consume food. Crucially, their cells don't have cell walls or chloroplasts.
So, no photosynthesis.
No photosynthesis. It's an incredibly diverse groupthink Jellyfish, birds, insects, worms, even things like sea anemones that look a bit plant-like but aren't.
And the plant kingdom, the photosynthesizers.
Exactly. Plants are defined by their cells having a nucleus, strong cell walls made of cellulose for support, and chloroplasts for photosynthesis. They make their own food using sunlight.
And they range hugely in complexity too, right?
Absolutely. From tiny mosses and simple liverworts all the way up to giant sequoia trees or complex flowering plants like orchids and saguaro cacti.
Okay. Animals eat, plants make their own food. What about fungi? They're kind of different.
They are very different. The fungus kingdom. Fungi, like mushrooms, molds, and yeasts, are distinct because they don't have chlorophyll, so they can't photosynthesize.
So how do they eat?
There are either decomposers, breaking down dead organic stuff, which is incredibly important ecologically.
Recycling nutrients.
Precisely. Or they can be parasites, living on or in other organisms. Multicellular fungi, like mushrooms, are made of fine threads called hyphae, while yeasts are single-celled. And they reproduce using spores, not seeds.
Spores, right. Okay, now the protists. I've heard this is a bit of a mixed bag.
That's putting it mildly. The protist kingdom is often called the junk drawer of biology. It's basically a catch-all category for eukaryotic organisms, meaning their cells do have a nucleus that don't quite fit into the animal, plant, or fungus kingdoms.
So lots of variety.
Huge variety. Mostly single-celled, but some simple multicellular forms. Some are plant-like, like single-celled algae, chlamydomonas that photosynthesize. Others are more animal-like, like Charamecium that moves around and eats things. It's incredibly diverse.
A real grab bag.
Yeah.
And the last kingdom.
They're prokaryotes.
The prokaryote kingdom. These are fundamentally different from all the others. They're single-celled organisms, but their cells are much simpler. Critically, they lack a nucleus. No nucleus? Where's their DNA then?
Their DNA is usually a single circular loop, just floating in the cytoplasm. They also lack other complex structures like mitochondria. Bacteria are the classic example.
Like Staphylococcus aureus, you mentioned.
Exactly. Bacteria and another group called archaea make up the prokaryotes. They were the earliest forms of life and are found everywhere.
Amazing. Okay, so those 5 kingdoms give us the broad strokes. But within those, especially animals and plants, things get broken down further, don't they?
Oh, yes, much further. Especially within the animal kingdom, one major split is between vertebrates animals with backbones and invertebrates, those without.
Let's focus on the vertebrates. You said 5 main groups.
That's right, 5 main classes. First, fish. They're adapted for water, usually have scales, fins for swimming, and gills to get oxygen from the water. Most lay eggs without shells, in water. Think sharks, tuna, goldfish, those masked butterfly fish.
Okay. Fish, then amphibians, the ones that live in both worlds.
Kind of, yeah. Amphibians like frogs, toads, salamanders, they typically have moist skin, need to live near water, and undergo metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis, like tadpoles.
Exactly. They start as aquatic larvae with gills, then transform into adults that usually have lungs and can live on land, though they often still breathe through their skin too. They also lay jelly-like eggs, usually in water.
Fascinating transformation. Next up, reptile.
Reptiles. Think snakes, lizards, crocodiles, turtles. Key features are their dry, scaly skin, which helps prevent water loss, allowing them to live in drier places. They breathe with lungs and lay eggs with soft, leathery shells, usually on land.
So they're more independent of water than amphibians.
Generally, yes. Then we have birds, very distinctive groups. Feathers are the defining feature, yes. Along with wings, though not all fly, like ostriches, beaks, and they lay hard-shelled eggs. Kingfishers, eagles, penguins, sparrows, huge variety.
And finally, mammals, our group.
Our group indeed. Mammals are characterized by having hair or fur at some stage. They give birth to live young, typically.
Instead of laying eggs, though the platypus messes that up a bit.
Yes, the platypus and echidnas are the exceptions that lay eggs, the monotremes. But most mammals have internal development in a uterus with a placenta. They feed their young milk produced by mammary glands, and they have a diaphragm muscle to help with breathing. Whales, bats, elephants, mice, us, even that strange-looking pangolin.
Incredible diversity within mammals, too. Okay, switching from vertebrates, what about the invertebrates with jointed legs, the arthropods? You mentioned they're super successful.
Hugely successful. The arthropods, their success is largely down to that hard external skeleton, the exoskeleton, which provides support and protection, and crucially, it's waterproof, which really helped them conquer land.
And they have jointed legs, right? That's key.
Jointed legs are key, yes, and we divide them into 4 main classes.
Okay, hit me with the 4.
First, the insects, probably the most diverse group. 3 body parts, head, thorax, abdomen. 3 pairs of jointed legs attached to the thorax. usually one pair of antennae, and often wings, typically 2 pairs. They breathe through little tubes called tracheae. Think beetles, butterflies, ants, dragonflies.
Okay, 3 pairs of legs. What about things with more legs, like crabs?
They belong to the crustaceans. They typically have more than 4 pairs of jointed legs, and importantly, they have 2 pairs of antennae. Most live in water. Crabs, lobsters, shrimp, woodlice, which are actually land crustaceans.
2 pairs of antennae, okay. And spiders. They seem different again.
They are. Spiders, scorpions, mites, ticks, they're arachnids. They have 4 pairs of jointed legs. Crucially, they have no antenna, and their body is usually just 2 main parts. A combined head thorax called the cephalothorax and the abdomen.
4 pairs of legs, no antenna. Got it. And the really leggy ones.
The ones with loads of legs. Those are the myriapods. Myri means many, pod means foot. Their bodies are long and segmented with legs on pretty much most segments. They have 1 pair of antennae. Centipedes and millipedes are the classic examples here.
Centipedes and millipedes. Okay, that covers the main arthropod groups. That's a lot of animal classification. What about plants? We mentioned kingdoms, but are there major groups within plants too, like ferns and flowering plants?
Yes, absolutely. Within the plant kingdom, we can make broad distinctions. For instance, ferns are a distinct group. They have proper roots, stems, and leaves. The leaves are often large and feathery, called fronds.
But no flowers, right?
Correct. No flowers, no seeds. They reproduce using stores, often produced in little clusters on the underside of the fronds. They're an ancient lineage.
Okay. And the ones that do have flowers?
Those are the flowering plants, or angiosperms. This is the dominant group of plants today. They produce flowers, which are involved in reproduction, and their seeds develop inside an ovary, which often becomes the fruit.
And you mentioned these are split into 2 groups as well, dicots and monocots.
That's right. Based mainly on the structure of their seeds, but also other features. Dicotyledons, or dicots, have seeds with 2 embryonic leaves, 2 cotyledons.
Okay.
They also typically have branching veins in their leaves, like a network pattern. And their flower parts, petals, sepals, usually come in multiples of 4 or 5. Think roses, sunflowers, oak trees, beans, hibiscus.
Network veins, parts in 4s or 5s.
Okay.
And monocots.
Monocotyledons, or monocots, have seeds with only 1 cotyledon. Their leaves usually have parallel veins running alongside each other. Think grass blades or corn leaves.
Like grass, right.
Exactly. And their flower parts typically come in multiples of 3. Lilies, orchids, tulips, grasses, corn, palm trees, these are all monocots.
Parallel veins, parts in 3s. That's a clear difference. Wow. Okay, so we've covered the definition of life, the naming system, the kingdoms, detailed animal groups, plant groups. But there's still this lingering question about viruses. Where do they fit? Are they alive by our 7 rules?
Viruses. They are. Problematic for classification. Generally, biologists do not consider viruses to be living organisms.
Not alive. Why not? They certainly cause a lot of trouble for living things.
They absolutely do. But if you go back to our list of 7 characteristics, viruses fail, most of them. They can't grow in the biological sense. They don't excrete waste. They don't respond to stimuli, show sensitivity. And crucially, they cannot reproduce on their own.
They need a host cell?
They absolutely need a living host cell. Outside a cell, a virus is basically inert chemical complex. Just genetic material, DNA or RNA, wrapped in a protein coat. That's it.
So it's like dormant potential.
You could say that. It only becomes active, if you like, when it infects a cell. Then it hijacks the cell's machinery, forcing it to make thousands of copies of the virus.
Biological pirates, as you said.
Pretty much. They replicate, but they don't reproduce independently. They don't respire. They don't grow.
Yeah.
So by the standard definition, they aren't alive.
But their impact is undeniable. Colds, flu, AIDS.
Huge impact. They're incredibly significant, biologically and medically, blurring that line between living and non-living. They really challenge our definitions.
What an incredible journey we've taken.
Yeah.
Seriously. From being puzzled by the platypus, this creature that just didn't fit.
Right, that initial confusion.
To understanding the 7 fundamental traits of life, and then seeing how scientists built this logical system, species, genus, kingdoms, all the way down through animal and plant groups to bring order to it all. It really does give you a completely new way to look at the world.
It provides a framework, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A way to see the connections and the diversity simultaneously. You start to see the underlying patterns.
Exactly. And what's really exciting, as you touched on, is that this isn't a finished story, is it? This classification system, this map of life, it's still being drawn.
Constantly. It's dynamic. Mm-hmm. New species are discovered all the time, like that huge Denitzia tree found recently in Brazil, hiding in plain sight. And new techniques especially in genetics, are constantly refining our understanding of how different groups are related. Sometimes species get moved around, relationships get redrawn. It's an ongoing scientific process.
So the map is always evolving, which is a fantastic thought to end on, actually. Knowing how life is defined, how it's organized, how it's still being explored. What connections might you notice now? What patterns might jump out when you just, look closely at the life around you? There's